When Natalie disappeared, I should have been taken to a safe house instead of thrown off into the public to be punished without a day in court. And then I'm supposed to just be fine with it. Having to go from one abusive environment to another because the police didn't want to do that. Police kept on saying they couldn't do things and couldn't do things and couldn't do things that they did for others. The laws are specifically set up to screw over the people who are poor. The less you have, the more screwed you are. The less you have, the less rights you have. And people are just as important as things. When people are afraid to come forward because of stereotypes, that's a major issue. Those folks who said you shouldn't care what other people think, those people care what other people think. All of this happened over opinions that I was never, ever allowed to defend myself against. And people assumed my guilt and physically harmed me for a whole year before Natalie died. I couldn't see my loved ones because of that. And I couldn't say anything without getting talked over. I couldn't get anybody to actually listen. And then it was so fucked up that I'm literally desperate and at the end of my rope and talking 400 miles an hour because I need somebody to listen. I'm fucking freaking out. And then they throw me away or get abusive because of it, and they don't like me being abusive back. You don't like how you treat me, obviously, because you don't like how I treat you in the same way. A lot of people, like Lexi Woods, wanted my help. But then again, when I needed her help, I just needed her to tell the truth. But she wouldn't. She wouldn't come forward. And I kind of gotta tell you, I expected that. When people accuse you of doing the things that I was accused of and you never get a day in court, then it must mean that you're guilty, right? No, it doesn't. That's why I've been trying to get a day in court. While judges who did wrong repeatedly write stuff down on my paperwork like I didn't even try to show up in court. No, I was illegally prevented from going to court. I ended up with failure to appears because I was incarcerated and taken to Arapahoe County Jail. Now, because I was in jail, I cannot fail to appear. But then I don't have the money to bail myself out, so I'm screwed. I have to just take it. I don't have the money for a telephone, so I just have to take it. Alyssa Rainwater spent a lot of money on telephone time for me. After it was already too late to do any good, but I was still glad for it. A lot of people helped me when it was too late to do any good, but I was still glad for it. Her mom tried to give me phone time back when it would have made a difference, but that phone time never showed up. They wouldn't put any phone time on for me until it was too late for it to do any good. I was supposed to get court-ordered phone time that they wouldn't allow me to have until it was too late to do any good. And then there's Pamela Cardi not showing up repeatedly. That still fucked me in court, but you know what the difference is between Pamela Cardi and my other public pretenders who did the same thing? It didn't cost me $100 every time that Pamela Cardi didn't show up because I was incarcerated. And that's part of the reason for being incarcerated. I needed to save up the money to be able to go and jump through all these hoops. All these hoops that I only had to jump through because I wasn't allowed to make a report. All of these people who did these horrible things to me because only one side was ever taken, and it makes me look like a monster. I shouldn't have had to defend myself that way. People shouldn't have done those things to me to begin with. And I should have had the help that these people had. My disabilities were exploited entirely. My resources were exploited, or my lack thereof. Everything was done to continue and continue and continue to eat up all of my money and all of my mental health. Meanwhile, I'm in environments with temperamental drunks who are up all night screaming at each other. Temperamental meth heads who are up all night screaming at each other. And finally, I'm able to pass out at the time that I should be making phone calls because it's daylight hours. I needed a safe environment. A safe environment. Abusing somebody who's overwhelmed because they're continually abused, because they're at risk, because they're vulnerable, and they tell you they're vulnerable, and obviously then it must not be because they can speak. No, I shut down, and then people kick me while I'm shut down. I need help, and then I scream at the top of my lungs, God damn it, keep your word, help me.